And we're back. So we've kind of finished off our mail pilot. Ali's finally happy. Mail pilot's done, right? We've updated our GitHub, so you have all that information. Now remember, it's in the Atlas branch if you want to get all that info, right? So where do we go from here? I mean, this is, now that we've got our mail pilot kind of completed, going back to what we saw before, and if I was going to look at our final project, remember, there's two pieces to the final project, our final game project and our presentation, right? So I'm going to talk about this with you. One thing I'd like to get from you is a sense of, especially by now, because you've had this since from last week, is who are you working with? Who's your partner? Do you have a partner, right? Are you working alone? If you're working alone, and again, I would say warning, working alone on this thing is probably going to be very challenging for you. There's a lot of little pieces to this, and there's a very good chance that if you work alone, your output may not be that great. The other option is, hey, I want to do this, like I talked about earlier, I want to make my game based off of my side scroller. I spend a lot of time on my side scroller. Tom, can I use it? The answer is yeah, you can, but it can't be your side scroller again, right? It can't be just you giving me the same project one more time. That just doesn't make any sense. Although you could say, well, look, I have almost the stuff that I need. I have my start screen, my gameplay screen, my game end screen. All I need to do is add in a couple of other levels, right? Well, yes, you could add some stuff. There's 3 levels of difficulty is what it says. Easy, medium, hard. So 3 different states, play states. Play easy, play medium, play hard. It accomplishes the requirements of my application, right? It does. You could do that. You could also say that it's, instead of easy, medium, hard, it's level 1, level 2, level 3. You finish level 1 with Mail Pilot, you collect enough points, it catapults you into level 2, right? Level 2, now you've got ships that come at you that fire, or it's submarines that attack you from the sea. I'm just making this up, you know, or whatever. Now you're in space. You've graduated from Mail Pilot to Shuttle Pilot, you know, whatever. You know, the idea here is that you go to level 2, right? Level 3, now you're not in space anymore, you know, whatever, you're somewhere else. You're on a planet, a planet's surface, and now you're playing a totally different game. It has nothing to do with the original Mail Pilot mechanic. You're a guy who's trying to, you know, salvage ship parts, right, from the islands, whatever. That's the next part of it, right? Now remember, whenever you make these changes, your instructions would change. You know, the game design document's going to change. All that stuff's going to change up as you do this, right? So, I mean, there's different options for level 3, for 1, 2, and 3. One thing I'll mention again is please don't make the game faster. That's just not good. So don't just say, okay, I'm level 2, and my play state level 2, now my frame rate, instead of 60 frames per second, or let's go back, oh, I'm really smart, I'm going to fool Tom. My first game is only working at 20 frames per second, my first level. My second level is 40 frames per second, and my third level is 60 frames per second. That's my first, second, and third level, and everything gets faster, including my player, right? Not recommended. Please don't do that. That would just not, I wouldn't accept that, right? Same thing if you went to like something crazy like 90 frames per second, which like most browsers and or computers won't support, right? That would not be good. So you could use part of your stuff for sure. Your scoring system would be the same. Your sound effects, so you want to get, now there's some extra sound effect requirements. That's one thing you'd have to add in. Collisions with enemies, collecting points, shooting attacks, all that stuff. Explosions, if you're going to add in explosions. And a game soundtrack is now required. Before it was optional. Right? So if you did a game soundtrack for your side scroller, yeah, you're good. You got this requirement too, right? Internal documentation, external documentation for different things. There's the same kind of idea that I'm asking for. And pretty much, if you follow this thing, let's say you want to get some bonus marks, you add in a final boss monster, so you make another level. So you make first level, second level, third level, boss monster level, right? And the boss monster has its own level that you defeat, you kick him, you know, kick his ass, whatever you're going to do with him. You can add some cheat codes, mini game. I don't recommend this for people who are not really good at coding. And this is someone who's like 2 people that are really good at coding, that really want to challenge themselves. Mini game, right? Empower the player to gain an NPC, some kind of non-player character, or an additional ship. Let's say I've got 2 ships. Just like in some games where you get enough points and all of a sudden you get a ship beside your ship, and now that ship can fire, right? Or some guy that flies behind you. right? And or maybe some kind of shield, right? That runs in front of you, like a power up somehow, right? All these kind of things are really cool. How about saving and loading the game, or high score? Like our high score right now is not persistent, right? Like right now, if I can show you my high score between levels, that's just another variable, right? Variable, high score, number equals to 0, right? And this time, I don't reset my score all the time. I don't reset my high score. I add to it. So as I go on, my high score kind of goes higher and higher. What if I want to save it? What kind of technology do I need to use to save my score? A couple things you can do. You can use PHP, right, to have a PHP backend. You could use Node if you're a Node kind of person. You could do any of these things. The other thing is that I would give bonuses for people who want to host this thing in the cloud. If you're really someone who's like really ambitious and you want to make a Node project and you want to host it on Azure or in the cloud, I'll give you bonus points for that too. But please, any of these things you do, I want you to mention in your external document and let me know. Yes?
Don't we always do a post on the cloud assignments?
No, but you're doing it on like student web or whatever, right? Or wherever. No.
What do you mean by cloud?
What I mean by that is there's some cloud services you can definitely use. Like for example, I can use, you could sign up for a pay-as-you-go version of Azure. If I go manage windowsazure.com, Windows Azure is a cloud service provided by Microsoft. I'm just giving you an example. By the way, the big ones, the three big ones, when this thing pulls up eventually, and I love our school server, by the way. The school Wi-Fi is fantastic. But the three things the three big ones for cloud services are Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, and Amazon Web Services. Those are the three cloud platforms that are out there. As an example, I've got some examples right here. If I want to build a web app, as an example, I want to host my app in the cloud, right? I have one. Remember that Starbase 12 I showed you guys at the beginning of do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
Starbase 12, I kind of have it here as pay as you go. Now there's different options. You can also get an Azure Pass as students eventually. I got some credits that I can use, right? And what we can do is if I create an application, I want to host it instead of hosting it right now where I'm doing it. I want to host it in the cloud, my Mail Pilot game, right? So Azure allows us to do that, and what I can do is I can set up almost like an application, a project that's waiting for me to host almost like a container. Okay, so let's start up a new project here in Azure just to show you what it looks like. Here's my web apps, and again, you sign up for Microsoft Azure on your own. You have to put in a credit card. They won't use it. Pay as you go, right? So that means if you don't have any web apps or whatever, the cost is minimal to use Azure. If you're just going to do a web app without using a database or something crazy like that, right? So let's click this off, wherever. So I've got this. I'm going to create a new URL, and we're going to call this thing Mail Pilot. Let's see if this actually allows me to do something. I do. I have the ability. It's going to be called Mail Pilot at AzureWebsites.net, and I can choose a service plan. Right now, it's free. It's going to be as East US, and then my subscription. I can choose what subscription I want. So let's just use my default US free Azure Pass. There we go. Now I can show you how to do this if you're really interested. I want to create my web app. When it creates it, it actually is creating a space for my web app, right, to run. Now, right now, there's nothing there, right? I want to publish my project, my Mail Pilot project, to here, to my web app, and I can do that by if I go to Visual Studio, right? So I've got my web app running, and I want to stop running everything. So I'm going to go File. Let's say I'm going to stop. I have to stop debugging. Let's just get rid of all this. So remember, if I wanted to publish this Mail Pilot version 1, this is what this would be, right? And under Solution Explorer, if I just collapse everything for a second, if I right-click on my project, I can go Publish, right in Visual Studio, right? And it gives me an option to publish my Microsoft Azure web app. Well, I can select the web app that I have available, right, that I want to publish. So, for example, Mail Pilot, which I just created, right? And I can press OK. when I do that, it's going to give me the information for my web deploy, my mailpilot.azurewebsites.net. I can validate my connection to make sure that I've got a good connection. So if this validate connection doesn't work, right, I got a problem. I mean, I won't be able to launch my web app unless I do that. There it is. So we're good. I go next. So it's going to be a release. I can also make it a debug configuration. Right now, release is where I want to go. My first release. And I can publish. Now, if everything goes well, and if I've done things correctly, then it will run under MailPilot. So now you guys should have access to it too. Go to mailpilot.azurewebsites.net. Okay. Huge. It's in the cloud, baby. Now, because I'm in Azure, I have access to a secret database. I have access to all kinds of stuff. That gives me the ability of everything that I want to use on the Microsoft side. And you guys can play it live too.
Yay. 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 Yay.
You guys playing it? Yeah, because
Yay.
we're all playing it together. And because we're on Azure, I can have a network component to it too, right? Where we can all play the network gameplay, right? Where I can detect when the players are on.
Yay.
We're on the website, and I can add this network component to the game.
Yay. Yay.
900 points, baby, right? So you guys try it out, right? It's mailpilot.azurewebsites.net, right? So that's one option you have for Azure. Now, again, it's an Azure Pass. I'm getting it kind of free. Eventually, it'll be pay as you go. As an example as well. I'm just going to kill this. I'm going to kind of stop this school exam thing because I also have a school exam running. But MailPilot, the great thing is with Azure, I can turn off and on apps as I want. So if I don't want to run an app I can stop it. I can also point a custom domain, right? So I know my app is called mailpilot.azurewebsites.net. I can point my custom domain, right, top level domain to this, so I can have my own custom website that'll do it. There's lots of really cool things about Azure. A little bit out of scope for this course, but we do cover it in COMP398 if you guys are looking to take emerging technologies, which is offered in winter. Right? So that's one thing we do with web apps. The other one is if you wanna talk about some totally free stuff, and it's a really cool, highly recommended stuff. You can also go to Heroku, right? So if you go to Heroku.com as an example, Heroku is another cloud type service, and it also does things like PHP on the back end. It also does Node and so on. If I log in, maybe that's it. I don't know. I've got a couple of stuff that's already running. One of them is this Starbase 12 application. So if you wanted to see Starbase 12, you go to starbase12.herokuapp.com if I'm not wrong. Let me just see how this works. So here's Starbase 12, right? Which is kind of cool. You can host it here on Heroku. It's a free sign up for those people who want to do that, and the web deploy is kind of easy. If I go to deploy, if you notice, you can deploy right from GitHub. If you've got your stuff on GitHub, which is very interesting. You can do the same thing for Azure. You can deploy right from GitHub. So once something changes on GitHub, Azure will be automatically updated, right? Which is very cool. So you have no deployment requirements at all. Just update things on GitHub, and then it's deployed live. Right? Sorry? Cloud, brother, right? It's the next thing. So definitely Heroku is this free service. There's also other ones as well, other services like DigitalOcean. If you want to try that, DigitalOcean is another cloud service for hosting. There's definitely some free stuff you can get for DigitalOcean. A lot of people love DigitalOcean in terms of how easy it is to log in and sign up and all that kind of stuff. So these are the things that I would kind of look at and say, they've kind of gone the extra mile, and they wanted to kind of, kind of set up something on the cloud. It's good learnings for you too, from a cloud, cloud computing perspective. You want to try and move into the cloud nowadays. Hosting just on a regular website is becoming passé. It's becoming something like, let's say, if a regular provider like you know, as an example, we're moving away from that, like Bell or Rogers or something crazy like that, or even the school server, the way it's configured. We're moving away from that. We're moving towards the cloud more and more, right? Because cloud infrastructure services, you know, they offer you the ability for you to ramp up and scale your application, especially if you're creating something like an enterprise level application. You can scale your service. You can actually have additional instances. You have control over how many places in the world you have your application running and where it's running. Like I can have a data center, and Microsoft has data centers across the world. I think they're opening one here in Toronto, near in downtown Toronto, or Mississauga. I'm not sure where it's going to be. And there's going to be another one that's probably going to be open up in the West, in Vancouver, I think. But mostly right now they're all in the States. There's some in Australia. There's some across Europe. So imagine if you want presence for your application in Europe and you don't want any latency, or you want redundancy so that your application is running in more than one place. Whoever is accessing, depending on their geolocation, can access that application, and you can actually program your application to detect where they're incoming from. So lots of really cool stuff to me, and I can't say enough about cloud computing. If you want to try and do that and learn how to do that, definitely there's some really cool services. You just got to give me the link. Right? So if you have your own custom domain for your final project, again, I would consider that as potential bonus marks, right, for you guys, because you've done extra work. You've said, okay, I've signed up for a cloud service, I've deployed it on the cloud, I've learned how to do that through Visual Studio, or maybe I did it through a command line. These are all extra things that you're going to get. They're going to help you with other courses, right? It's not just for this course, but for other stuff, because most of you aren't gaming students. Who's a gaming student in this class, right? Probably nobody, right? So these are great. We're learning how to do web games, right? But web games isn't the final reason why we're doing this. These are transferable skills. If I want to make an application, if I want to make an interesting website, let's just go to the awards site. This is one last thing, one last thought I want to give you. Whenever I look at top level awards or sites that are awesome, here's a site, here's a website. Let's take a look at this one. Okay. And this is they've made a game, right? So they've gamified their site, right? Now this is pretty big. It looks like they're loading nicely. And what the award site does is it ranks websites across the world, right? They kind of submit their link to the award site to get rated, right? So here's this game that's been created. Yeah. So I'm definitely not 1997. Right? World of Beers, right? So I can see there's like, right? Oh yeah, so if I was to pull this around or whatever, I can probably scroll up and down. And if I right click, you can see that I can inspect my elements. This is pure HTML5. If I resize this thing and resize it, right? The idea that I'm trying to tell you here is that you can create more robust type applications as opposed to just like games. And I'm probably going to get killed by YouTube for that sound, but I apologize. And there's other ones. Like if you look at, there's some really good examples of some games they made here. So refresh here for a second. And yeah. If I go to winners, I can also look at categories. Let's say game and entertainment, right? If I look at games and entertainment, this is one of them. Right? This is just new. This just got submitted July 3rd, right? Take Me to Tomorrowland, a game that they made, right? They got other kinds of beer games that you can play, right? And there's ones that kind of came from previous years, which if I can access it, would be really cool. I want to show you what you can do. And some of this is pure CSS as well. The Hobbit game. It doesn't have your vote, eh? Let's take a look at some stuff that they've got out here. So they make these awesome looking websites, right? Here's one that was made for, I guess this is something that they made. It was using WebGL, right? is one that we've seen lately, right? Pure WebGL. That's playing. Oh. Yeah, in WebGL. So let's kill this before I get killed by YouTube again. But the idea here is that this awards website, AWWARDS, 3 W's for awards, is a great place to check for other types of websites, not just game websites. And an example of that would be if I went to winners, I could definitely filter on category. So if I wanted something like web and interactive or business and corporate or whatever, I can look at some really cool designs. And I'll tell you right now, a lot of the stuff we do with Canvas, right, is things that you can use here from a regular design perspective. You don't have to make it a game. You can make it a game-like element that you have on your page or some kind of animation that you put on your page. No one can tell that you're using a canvas, right? That you're drawing with canvas, animating with canvas. No one can tell these things, right? But it's a really cool, you know, something that you're going to add in as a component to your web design that kind of makes you have like superpowers to me, right? So I'm going to leave you with that thought. Next week when we get together, I want to give you some more tricks and tips about making games. We're going to talk about things like a platform game with Box2D. I'll show you that kind of stuff. Box2D physics. And we're also going to do, if we can handle it, I'd like to you know, try and do some particle physics. You know, try and show you some explosions with particle physics. I want to try doing that. That's week 11. But week 12 and week 13, there won't be any teaching class during that time. I'm not going to teach you during week 12 and week 13. It's going to be class time in here to give you a few hours to work on your projects, your final projects here in class, so I can help you out. We can help conceptualize stuff and all that kind of stuff on week 12 and week 13. So next week will be the last week of classes that we teach. Right? I won't be teaching anything else after that. I'll be here though for you guys to help you with your project because this is kind of a project-heavy course. I'm also going to be checking on your progress. So please, if I'd ask you to come in, show me your work. If you have any issues, we can go over it together. I can try and hammer out some problems from a coding perspective, those kind of things. I'd like to see your work early and also maybe redirect you if you've got a problem or you're running into a wall. All right, so please don't miss these you know, classes week 12 and week 13. That would be bad for you because we all need help. We all need an extra set of eyes to look at our project, and I'm here to help you out, okay? Any questions or concerns? All right, take care. We'll see you next week for the last week of classes, week 11.